What if I tell you that every memory you have about money, every moment of regret, every time you felt like you didn't have enough, is not fixed but entirely malleable in your imagination, and that by consciously revisiting these moments you can transform the very foundation of your financial reality? Because Neville Goddard teaches that your mind is not a passive recorder of events, but an active creator of your experiences. And that the key to changing your present circumstances is to rewrite the past as though it had unfolded exactly as you wish it had, so that the emotional charge of lack no longer clings to your consciousness. And as you imagine those moments differently, you are not denying reality, but aligning with a higher truth that was always possible. Because the act of revision allows you to dissolve the guilt, fear, and frustration that often accompany financial mistakes. And when you replace them with images of wisdom, resourcefulness, and abundance, your consciousness begins to recognize a new pattern where wealth, opportunity, and success naturally emerge, so that even the memories of losing money, making a bad decision, or missing a chance are no longer anchors that pull you into scarcity, but instead become stepping stones that guide you toward better choices and unforeseen blessings. And as you practice this consistently, each night before sleep or whenever your mind is still, you are essentially planting seeds of abundance that will manifest in your waking life. Because the imagination, when combined with feeling, has the power to alter the timeline of your experience. And the more you engage in this inner work, the more your external circumstances begin to mirror the inner world you have cultivated, so that bills that once seemed overwhelming, investments that felt risky, and opportunities that appeared lost are now seen through a lens of wisdom and possibility. And as you continue, you realize that your relationship with money is not about chasing it externally, but about reshaping your inner narratives to match the life you intend to live. And the beauty of revision is that it is not bound by linear time, meaning that a financial mistake from years ago can be transformed tonight into a memory of insight and abundance, which in turn colors your decisions, actions, and expectations in the present, so that slowly, imperceptibly at first, but then unmistakably, the scarcity you once knew fades and a new pattern of wealth begins to emerge, making you aware that the limitations you once believed were imposed by circumstances were in truth sustained only by your memory and imagination. And as this awareness deepens, you start noticing opportunities, ideas, and synchronicities that seem to align perfectly with the new financial reality you are imagining. And therefore, revision becomes not merely an exercise in changing the past, but a practical tool for creating wealth now, allowing you to step confidently into a present where abundance is expected, sought, and received naturally. And as you internalize this practice, you find that even the most challenging financial memories can be rewritten with ease. And the energy of lack is replaced with a confident anticipation of prosperity that flows seamlessly from your inner world to your outer reality. And as you begin to feel the freedom of rewriting your memories, you start to realize that the mistakes you once believed defined your financial life were never real in the first place, because their power existed only in the way you chose to remember and re-experience them. And the moment you shift your imagination to a version of events where things went differently, you break the chains that kept you tethered to scarcity, making it clear that every lost investment, every miscalculated expense, and every opportunity that seemed to slip through your fingers was merely a story you continued to tell yourself. Which is why Neville emphasizes that reality itself does not bind you, but your memory and feeling do. And when you learn to see these memories as illusions, you begin to understand that the past is not a cage, but a canvas upon which you can paint the life you desire. Because each time you revisit a financial failure in imagination and transform it into a success, the emotional weight that once held you back dissipates, creating room for confidence, inspiration, and foresight to enter your consciousness. And the beauty of this process is that it does not require external validation or immediate change in circumstances. The internal transformation alone is enough to realign your life, so that the lessons you once thought came too late or caused harm now serve as fuel for deliberate action, insight, and creative problem solving. And as you continue this practice, the concept of mistake begins to lose meaning entirely. Because what matters is not what actually happened, but how you choose to perceive it. And by seeing your past financial missteps as opportunities to learn, pivot, and imagine a different outcome, you remove the power of regret and replace it with a sense of agency and empowerment. And this shift is subtle at first, but grows exponentially as your consciousness embraces the idea that lack is never real except in thought, and abundance is always present for those who believe it. And the moment you internalize this truth, the past no longer haunts you, but becomes a source of inspiration, creativity, and calculated risk-taking, allowing you to make decisions from a place of confidence rather than fear. And because your mind cannot hold two contradictory realities at once, as you live in the imaginative success of revised memories, the old patterns of scarcity gradually dissolve, revealing new paths, new ideas, and new opportunities that align perfectly with the life you have consciously chosen. And as you move forward, every financial interaction, whether large or small, carries the echo of this inner transformation, subtly reinforcing your new identity as someone who always succeeds, learns, and attracts wealth naturally. And therefore, what once felt like mistakes are now understood as illusions, masks of possibility, waiting for your imagination to reveal their hidden potential. And this understanding seamlessly prepares you for the next step, where emotional energy tied to money plays a pivotal role in shaping your financial destiny. As you begin to see past financial mistakes as illusions, it becomes clear that the real reason they linger in your life is the emotional charge they carry. Because every time you relive a moment of losing money, making a poor choice, or missing an opportunity, your feelings attach to that memory and give it a weight far greater than the event itself. And Neville explains that it is not the external circumstances that create your present reality, but the persistent emotional impressions that dominate your consciousness, which is why the fear, guilt, and frustration associated with financial mistakes are so powerful, because they act like magnets, pulling similar experiences into your life over and over. And as you notice this pattern, you understand that the emotions you felt when you were broke or stressed about money are not just reactions, but seeds that continue to grow unless consciously revised. And the act of revision allows you to replace these seeds with feelings of confidence, security, and abundance, so that instead of reinforcing scarcity, your memories begin to nurture prosperity. And the more often you revise, the more natural it becomes to feel empowered in financial situations, because your mind starts to expect wealth, anticipate opportunities, and act from a place of assurance rather than anxiety. And this process does not erase lessons learned, but instead reframes them, showing you that every financial setback can be a source of insight and preparation. And by attaching positive emotions to memories that once caused distress, you essentially retrain your nervous system to respond differently to money, creating a ripple effect that transforms not only your past recollections, but your present actions, decisions, and even the energy you project toward potential investments or income streams. And as this internal shift solidifies, you start noticing subtle synchronicities, unexpected opportunities, and moments of clarity that would have gone unnoticed when fear dominated your consciousness. And these experiences reinforce the power of imagination as a tool for reshaping reality, making it clear that the emotional weight of money memories is only as real as the attention you give them. And once you consciously rewrite them with feeling, your financial narrative changes, attracting abundance naturally and effortlessly. And as you continue, you begin to understand that mastering your emotional responses is just as important as practical financial skills. Because the mind is the ultimate generator of wealth or scarcity, and the energy you bring to every financial decision is a reflection of the inner stories you carry, which makes revising those stories the most effective strategy for erasing lack, boosting confidence, and creating a present where prosperity is the default expectation. And this awareness seamlessly leads into the next understanding, which is how debt and missed opportunities can be transformed through the deliberate power of revision. And as you begin to feel the power of emotion in shaping financial reality, it becomes impossible to ignore how much debt stories weigh on your consciousness. because every time you remember owing money, making late payments, or struggling to cover expenses, the memory reinforces a sense of scarcity and helplessness that spills over into every area of life. And Neville teaches that these memories, like all others, are not fixed events but opportunities for imaginative revision, so that when you return to the moment you felt trapped by debt and reimagine it as a turning point where solutions appeared effortlessly, the emotional charge of lack begins to dissolve and is replaced with a confident expectation of abundance. And as you continue this practice consistently, the past that once felt like a burden becomes a source of empowerment, because you have shifted the narrative from failure to wisdom and proactive decision-making, and this internal revision directly influences your present, because the mind cannot distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and real events when they are accompanied by strong feeling, and suddenly the fear, anxiety, and frustration tied to money start to fade, replaced by clarity, confidence, and an intuitive understanding of how to manage resources. And the more you do this, the more natural it becomes to see debt not as a trap, but as a temporary challenge that can always be navigated with insight, strategy, and imagination. And the moment you embrace this perspective, your consciousness begins to attract solutions, assistance, and opportunities that were invisible before. Because the energy of worry and limitation has been replaced with expectation and readiness. And this subtle shift transforms not only your financial decisions, but your overall approach to life, making it easier to recognize opportunities for growth, negotiation, or even unexpected windfalls. And as you internalize this new story, the old sense of defeat dissolves entirely, leaving you free to act decisively and creatively in the present. And every financial interaction becomes an expression of competence, foresight, and confidence, because your mind now operates from a foundation of abundance rather than fear. And this natural transformation demonstrates that debt is never a permanent condition, but merely a narrative that can be rewritten in imagination. And by practicing this consciously, you begin to see a new pattern emerge in your life, one where money flows, obligations are met effortlessly, and financial mistakes are simply lessons reframed as stepping stones, which leads directly into understanding how even the moments when we lose income can be revised into opportunities for growth, empowerment, and wealth creation. And as you grow more confident in transforming debt and mistakes, you begin to realize that even losing a job, being passed over for promotion, or facing sudden unemployment is not a permanent verdict, but a story your mind can revise. Because the moment you relive that experience in imagination and rewrite it as an opening for new opportunities, higher income, and greater fulfillment, the fear and disappointment that once dominated your consciousness begin to dissolve. And Neville teaches that these moments, while painful in memory, are rich with creative potential when approached with imagination. Because the emotional intensity attached to losing a job makes it a powerful lever for change if you consciously redirect it toward expectation of abundance. And the more vividly you imagine alternative outcomes, finding a better position, discovering an unexpected source of income, or being guided to a path that aligns with your true abilities, the more your present reality begins to mirror the story you are telling yourself internally, so that what once felt like rejection transforms into divine guidance and a stepping stone toward wealth. And as you do this consistently, the energy of lack, anxiety, and frustration fades, leaving only clarity, confidence, and an expectation that resources will always arrive in perfect timing. And this practice subtly rewires your subconscious, making it impossible to dwell on fear of scarcity without immediately replacing it with hope, insight, and opportunity. And as a result, you start noticing doors opening that would have gone unseen when you were trapped in the old story of loss, because your consciousness is now tuned to recognize abundance and solutions rather than obstacles. And every interaction with colleagues, employers, or potential clients begins to carry the energy of competence, readiness, and positivity, which attracts better opportunities naturally. And the beauty of this process is that it is not dependent on external circumstances. Your inner world determines what you manifest externally. And by embracing this revision, you realize that losing a job is not an ending but an invitation to step into a higher financial and personal reality. And the clarity, confidence, and creativity you gain in imagination carry forward into every choice you make, influencing negotiations, investments, and the way you approach challenges, until scarcity is no longer a factor in your thinking, and instead, opportunity, wealth, and growth become the default lens through which you view every financial situation, seamlessly preparing you to tackle the next stage, which involves understanding how regret keeps you chained to poverty and how conscious revision can dissolve it entirely. And as you reflect on how even job loss can be transformed through imagination, it becomes evident that regret is the invisible anchor that keeps most people chained to financial struggle. Because each time you replay moments of missed opportunity, poor judgment, or bad decisions, you reinforce feelings of inadequacy, fear, and limitation. And Neville emphasizes that these emotions are not facts of life, but products of the stories you continue to tell yourself. So that by consciously revising those moments in imagination, you can dissolve the mental and emotional weight of regret, replacing it with a sense of wisdom, empowerment, and possibility. And as you engage in this practice consistently, you notice that your mind begins to automatically reinterpret past mistakes as lessons rather than failures. And the once heavy burden of regret begins to feel lighter, opening space for new ideas, new opportunities, and proactive action in the present. Because your consciousness, freed from guilt and self-recrimination, starts to operate from a place of clarity and expectation. And the more you revise, the more your emotions align with abundance rather than scarcity, which in turn attracts experiences and circumstances that reflect this inner transformation. And you start to see that regret has no power, except the power you give it by dwelling on it. So when you choose to rewrite the narrative of your past financial missteps, you are actively shaping your future wealth and success. And this process works not only on individual incidents, but also on patterns that have repeated for years, dissolving the chains of long-held poverty consciousness, because each revision resets the emotional imprint that would otherwise perpetuate lack. And as these old stories are replaced with imagined successes, your confidence grows, your decisiveness increases, and your ability to seize opportunities expands until the mind naturally expects favorable outcomes and views challenges as temporary and solvable. And with this shift, you begin to notice how your financial decisions are guided less by fear and more by insight, intuition, and creativity, seamlessly bridging the understanding of regret with the next step, establishing daily practices that embed revision into your life so that every memory can be transformed into a catalyst for abundance. And as you begin to grasp the transformative power of dissolving regret through revision, it becomes clear that the practice is most effective when incorporated into daily rituals, because repeated, intentional engagement with your imagination strengthens the new patterns you are creating in consciousness and ensures that wealth-focused thoughts become automatic rather than fleeting. And Neville teaches that this can be done at any quiet moment, but especially before sleep, when the mind is relaxed and receptive, allowing the revised memories to embed deeply in your subconscious. And by making it a habit to replay financial situations in imagination, changing the outcomes to reflect abundance, you gradually rewire your thinking so that scarcity is replaced with expectation, opportunity, and confidence. And simple exercises, such as visualizing yourself discovering money you thought lost, making wise investments, or being praised for financial decisions you once regretted, serve as powerful anchors for this transformation. And as you continue, you notice subtle shifts throughout your day. Anxiety about bills diminishes, unexpected solutions appear, and your decision-making becomes sharper, because the emotional energy of abundance now underpins every action. And these rituals also cultivate gratitude for the resources you already have, reinforcing the idea that your mind creates reality based on feeling and belief. And over time, this daily engagement with revision reshapes your identity from one who struggles with money to one who naturally navigates opportunities, wealth, and prosperity. And as the process continues, even fleeting thoughts of past mistakes trigger immediate imaginative correction, so that regret no longer accumulates, but is transformed instantly into lessons and stepping stones. And the consistent practice of this ritual teaches the mind to seek abundance, spot opportunities, and anticipate favorable outcomes, reinforcing the invisible but powerful law that what you imagine with feeling inevitably manifests. And as a result, your inner world and outer reality begin to align effortlessly. And this alignment makes it increasingly natural to see every financial challenge not as a threat but as an invitation to apply your imagination creatively, which flows directly into the next step of revising specific moments, starting with the days you felt completely broke and powerless, and turning them into transformative experiences of wisdom, confidence, and unexpected gain. And as you establish the daily practice of revision, it becomes possible to tackle even the most vivid memories of scarcity, such as the days when you felt completely broke, powerless, or overwhelmed by financial pressure. Because these moments, while intense, carry enormous potential for transformation when revisited with imagination. And Neville teaches that by mentally returning to those days and reshaping every detail, how you received guidance, discovered unexpected income, or made a decision that led to abundance, you can erase the emotional weight of poverty and replace it with confidence, security, and opportunity. And as you do this consistently, the mind begins to expect solutions rather than fear. And the subconscious rewires itself to recognize possibilities that were invisible before, so that even the memory of looking at an empty wallet or an overdue bill no longer triggers despair, but instead prompts a subtle sense of hope and resourcefulness. And over time, the energy of those once stressful days is completely transformed, leaving a mental blueprint of how you can always navigate challenges creatively and successfully. And this practice also strengthens your ability to imagine desired outcomes in the present, because the mind learns to associate financial situations with abundance rather than lack. And as you continue, you may notice that opportunities appear in ways that feel coincidental, but are really a reflection of your inner alignment. And the more you revise these days, the more natural it becomes to respond to current financial challenges with composure, clarity, and confidence. And even conversations about money shift in tone because your emotional expectation has changed, attracting cooperation, understanding, and favorable conditions from others. And the beauty of this method is that it transforms both memory and energy simultaneously, allowing you to move through life without the invisible burden of past financial scarcity. And as your consciousness absorbs this new pattern, every low moment in your past becomes a testament to your ability to create wealth imaginatively, naturally leading into the next phase, which involves revising bank statements, balances, and records to further solidify the sense of abundance in your mind and lay a foundation for real-world manifestation. And as you grow more confident in transforming memories of financial stress, it becomes surprisingly effective to extend this practice to the concrete details of your past, such as bank statements, balances, and records. Because even the numbers that once seemed fixed can be reimagined in your mind as evidence of abundance. And Neville teaches that when you picture yourself opening a statement from the past and seeing deposits, unexpected income, or growth that didn't actually occur, the feeling associated with that imagined success begins to reshape your present expectations. And over time, these exercises retrain your consciousness to see money as plentiful, flowing, and always within reach, so that even when reviewing real-world finances, your mind no longer reacts with fear or limitation, but with creativity, foresight, and confidence. And as this becomes habitual, the act of checking balances transforms from a trigger of anxiety into a reminder of possibility and control. And by consistently revising past financial records, you are not denying reality, but establishing a new mental template for how money interacts with you, which subtly guides your decisions, choices, and actions toward outcomes that align with abundance. And this mental rehearsal also strengthens your belief that wealth is not something to chase externally, but something that unfolds naturally from your internal state. And as you imagine old statements overflowing with resources, your mind and body align with the feeling of security and plenty, attracting opportunities, collaborations, and solutions that might have been overlooked before. And the more detailed and vivid the revision, the stronger its effect on your subconscious, because the mind cannot distinguish between a powerfully imagined experience and a remembered reality. And with repeated practice, even years-old financial disappointments can be transformed into narratives of learning, growth, and unexpected windfalls. And this process enhances not only your sense of abundance, but also your capacity to act decisively in the present. Because the imagination has established a precedent of success, and the clarity, expectation, and calmness you feel while revising statements carry over into every decision about spending, saving, and investing. And as you internalize this pattern, it naturally leads you to the next step, addressing inherited financial beliefs and family stories that have unconsciously shaped your sense of wealth and scarcity. And as you refine your ability to revise personal financial experiences, it becomes evident that the narratives inherited from family, stories about struggle, scarcity, and missed opportunities, carry an extraordinary influence over your own relationship with money. Because these early impressions often shape your expectations long before you make independent decisions. And Neville teaches that by consciously revisiting and reshaping these family memories, you can break generational patterns of lack and redefine the financial story that now guides you. And as you imagine conversations where financial wisdom, abundance, and opportunity replace fear, limitation, and regret, the emotional charge that once reinforced poverty begins to fade, creating a new foundation in your consciousness for wealth and prosperity. And over time, these revisions allow you to see that your current financial reality is not dictated by the struggles of previous generations, but by the stories you choose to hold and nurture today. So that a childhood memory of being told we never have enough can be transformed into one where resources are always sufficient and opportunities abound. And this subtle yet powerful shift changes not only your beliefs, but also the way you interact with money in everyday life, because subconscious expectations now favor abundance rather than limitation. And as these revised family stories take root, you notice that financial decisions, investments, and even conversations about money naturally reflect confidence, foresight, and clarity. And the impact of this practice extends beyond your own experience, influencing how others perceive and respond to your financial presence, because the energy you project is now aligned with security and wealth. And by consistently revising inherited narratives, you gradually dissolve the invisible chains of generational scarcity, opening the door to creativity, opportunities, and financial growth that were previously blocked by conditioned beliefs. And as you continue this inner work, you develop a sense of empowerment that makes it easier to act decisively and attract abundance, seamlessly preparing you for the next realization. How rebuilding your relationship with money directly restores your self-worth and strengthens your ability to manifest prosperity in every area of life. And as you transform both personal and inherited financial narratives, it becomes clear that your sense of self-worth is intricately linked to how you remember and interpret money experiences, because every regret, failure, or moment of lack carries an unspoken judgment about your value. And Neville teaches that when you revise these memories, replacing them with experiences of competence, opportunity, and abundance, you simultaneously elevate your inner sense of worth. And as this shift takes hold, you begin to notice that decisions once clouded by doubt or hesitation are now approached with confidence, clarity, and decisiveness. Because the subconscious mind equates your imagined financial successes with personal value, reinforcing the idea that you are inherently capable of navigating wealth and prosperity. And the more consistently you practice revision, the more effortless it becomes to feel deserving of abundance, which in turn shapes not only your financial behavior, but also how others perceive and respond to you, creating a feedback loop of recognition, respect, and opportunity. And as you imagine past situations where you felt unworthy of wealth and rewrite them as moments where insight, initiative, and resourcefulness prevailed, you dissolve the internalized limitations that previously blocked your growth. And this newfound self-esteem allows you to approach money without fear, anxiety, or hesitation, because your consciousness now expects success and abundance as a natural reflection of your worth. And as this pattern solidifies, you start to see that wealth is not merely a result of effort or circumstance, but a manifestation of your internal state. And that revising past financial mistakes is less about correcting history and more about creating a present identity aligned with prosperity. And as you internalize this connection between revision and self-worth, opportunities begin to appear more frequently, solutions become clearer, and financial challenges are met with creativity rather than panic, seamlessly guiding you toward the next realization. How breaking the cycle of scarcity with revision produces ripple effects that transform your entire approach to money, making abundance a consistent and natural part of your life. And as your sense of self-worth strengthens through the deliberate rewriting of past experiences, it becomes clear that the persistent cycle of scarcity is maintained only by the unchallenged repetition of limiting memories. Because every time you relive a financial mistake, missed opportunity, or moment of lack, you reinforce patterns that attract similar circumstances. And Neville teaches that by revising these memories consciously, you disrupt the chain that ties your present to past failures, creating space for abundance to emerge naturally. And as you continue this practice, you notice that situations that once triggered worry, fear, or hesitation now prompt calm, confident problem-solving, because your subconscious no longer clings to old templates of limitation. And this disruption of scarcity is not instantaneous, but builds steadily with repeated imaginative rehearsal, gradually reshaping the way you perceive and respond to money. And the more you engage in revision, the more your mind begins to anticipate positive outcomes, seeing opportunities where before there were only obstacles. And as these new expectations take hold, your actions align with them effortlessly, attracting favorable circumstances, partnerships, and financial possibilities that reinforce your internal narrative of abundance. And because scarcity has been rooted in memory and emotional attachment rather than reality, dissolving these attachments produces an undeniable shift in your external life, making money management, investments, and income generation feel more natural and guided rather than forced and stressful. And as this new pattern embeds deeper, you start to experience synchronicities, windfalls, and moments of insight that were previously invisible, simply because your consciousness now operates from a foundation of expectation and receptivity rather than lack. And with each revised memory, the energy of limitation fades further, leaving only confidence, creativity, and openness to opportunity. And this transformation demonstrates that abundance is never a destination to be reached, but a state of being to be cultivated. And as your reality begins to reflect this inner shift, you are prepared to tackle another key aspect of financial mastery, revising missed opportunities to transform regret into actionable wisdom and unexpected gain. And as the cycle of scarcity dissolves, it becomes apparent that every opportunity you once let slip through your fingers can be revisited in imagination and transformed into a stepping stone toward wealth. Because the regret you carry over missed investments, promotions, or ventures holds emotional power that can either weigh you down or be redirected. And Neville teaches that by mentally returning to those moments and rewriting them with outcomes of success, insight, or timely action, you neutralize the negative charge and replace it with empowerment, confidence, and foresight. And as you practice this, you notice a profound shift in how you approach current and future opportunities, because the subconscious mind begins to expect that you will make wise choices and that resources will be available when needed. And the very act of revision trains your intuition to recognize possibilities that were previously overlooked, so that even moments that once caused frustration now serve as lessons and guides, teaching you the rhythm of timing, decision-making, and alignment with abundance. And as this becomes habitual, you start to perceive a pattern in what previously seemed like random setbacks, realizing that each missed chance carries the seeds of growth, insight, and preparation for greater financial success. And the mental rehearsal of alternative outcomes also strengthens your confidence in taking calculated risks, because your mind is now accustomed to envisioning success rather than dwelling on failure. And as these revised scenarios accumulate, the subconscious begins to weave them into a cohesive narrative that naturally influences real-world decisions, so that you act with clarity, discernment, and anticipation, And by continuously revisiting past missed opportunities, you are not dwelling in regret but creating a fertile inner landscape for abundance to manifest. And this awareness also subtly rewires your perception of luck, timing, and resourcefulness, making you more receptive to synchronicities and unexpected avenues of income. And as you embody this mindset fully, the energy of past mistakes transforms into guidance, intuition, and momentum, seamlessly preparing you for the next step. Exploring real-life examples of how revision can shift lifelong money patterns and turn persistent struggles into clear pathways to wealth. And as you begin to see the power of revising missed opportunities, it helps to imagine a case study of someone who consistently applied revision to transform a life of financial struggle into one of prosperity. Because real-life examples demonstrate how the mind's creative power can reshape circumstances when memories are consciously altered. And Neville teaches that individuals who regularly return to moments of loss, debt, or failure and reimagine them as triumphs begin to notice a shift not only in emotion, but in actual outcomes, so that where they once felt powerless, they now feel prepared, capable, and attuned to opportunity. And as they internalize these revised stories, their subconscious begins to expect success, naturally guiding them toward decisions, partnerships, and actions that align with abundance. And as this pattern continues, the energy of limitation and worry that once dominated their thinking diminishes, replaced by clarity, foresight, and confidence, so that even challenges are approached as temporary obstacles rather than insurmountable problems. And over time, the mental practice of revising the past manifests in real-world improvements. Debts are repaid, investments yield returns, and opportunities arise, seemingly by chance, but actually reflect the alignment of consciousness with abundance. And this case study also illustrates that the emotional charge of financial memories is more important than the events themselves, because transforming how one feels about the past directly influences present behavior and decision-making. And as this internal transformation becomes habitual, the person begins to embody the identity of someone who consistently attracts wealth, solves problems creatively, and sees every financial situation as navigable. And the ripple effects extend beyond money to confidence, relationships, and personal growth. Because a mind trained in revision naturally expects success and approaches life with curiosity, initiative, and resilience. And as these changes solidify, the story shows that no amount of past lack or failure can prevent a conscious individual from manifesting prosperity. And the clarity, confidence, and insight gained through this practice becomes self-reinforcing, producing opportunities and resources that were invisible before, seamlessly guiding the narrative into the next topic, revising conversations with money, to further solidify the mindset of abundance and financial mastery. And as the case study demonstrates the tangible power of revision, it becomes clear that the words we speak about money, both to ourselves and others, carry immense weight. Because every statement like, "I can't afford it," or "I never have enough," reinforces scarcity in consciousness. And Neville teaches that by revisiting past conversations in imagination and transforming them into dialogues of abundance, confidence, and wisdom, you can alter the emotional tone attached to money, replacing doubt and fear with expectation and empowerment. And as you consistently imagine scenarios where you communicate financial intelligence, make confident choices, or receive unexpected support, your subconscious begins to treat these imagined conversations as real, naturally influencing your behavior and decisions in the present, so that every discussion about money becomes an opportunity to project authority, clarity, and openness to abundance. And over time, the negative energy of past limiting conversations fades, making room for creativity, negotiation skills, and resourcefulness to flourish. And as this practice becomes habitual, you notice that people respond differently, offering collaboration, opportunities, and solutions that would have gone unnoticed before, because your internal state sets the tone for external interaction. And by revising these conversations, you also dissolve the fear of judgment, scarcity, or rejection, which often blocks financial progress. And the more vividly and emotionally you imagine these improved dialogues, the stronger the effect on your subconscious expectations. allowing you to navigate both planned and unexpected financial interactions with calm, insight, and confidence. And as a result, every past conversation becomes a tool for shaping present and future wealth, reinforcing the identity of someone who attracts opportunity, solves problems creatively, and manages resources wisely. And this inner alignment naturally carries forward into the next stage, understanding how modern psychology supports Neville's insights, showing that memory and emotion truly shape financial reality in ways science now begins to confirm. And as you explore the power of revising conversations with money, it becomes fascinating to realize that modern psychology and neuroscience support what Neville taught decades ago. Because research now shows that memories are not fixed snapshots of the past, but dynamic reconstructions that can be altered each time they are recalled. And this means that the very act of imagination, when combined with feeling, can modify the emotional charge of past financial experiences so that a memory of loss, mistake, or scarcity can be transformed into one of insight, resourcefulness, and opportunity. And studies reveal that the subconscious mind cannot distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and actual events when accompanied by strong emotion, which explains why consistently revising past financial situations has such a profound impact on present behavior, decision-making, and outcomes. And as you internalize this, it becomes clear that your inner world is not merely reflective of external circumstances, but actively shapes them, because the neural pathways associated with fear, regret, or limitation weaken as they are replaced by pathways that support confidence, foresight, and abundance. And the more frequently you engage in imaginative revision, the more natural it becomes to feel capable, resourceful, and open to financial opportunity, because your mind now expects success rather than scarcity. And the science of memory shows that this process also strengthens emotional regulation, problem-solving, and creative thinking, allowing you to approach challenges with composure and insight. And as these revised memories accumulate, they form a new internal narrative that guides behavior toward wealth, collaboration, and calculated risk-taking. And the clarity, calmness, and confidence cultivated through this practice ripple outward, influencing your interactions, decisions, and even the opportunities you notice. And by consciously combining Neville's techniques with this understanding of memory's malleability, you gain both spiritual and scientific validation for the transformative practice of revision, seamlessly leading into the next step, using revision to attract investments, windfalls, and financial breakthroughs by reshaping how past losses and setbacks are perceived in your mind. And as the science of memory reinforces Neville's insights, it becomes exciting to realize that the same practice of revision can be deliberately applied to attract not only stability, but unexpected financial windfalls and investment opportunities. Because every loss, misjudgment, or missed chance, when reimagined with clarity, foresight, and abundance, creates a subconscious expectation of opportunity. And Neville teaches that the mind, when convinced of abundance through vivid, emotional revision, begins to notice possibilities that would otherwise remain invisible. So that revisiting a past decision where an investment seemed lost can be transformed into a memory of growth, insight, and timely action, which in turn shapes your present attention, choices, and intuition. And as this becomes habitual, the subconscious mind aligns with scenarios that match the revised narrative, drawing resources, partners, and ideas that reflect the new expectation. And the more detailed and emotionally compelling the revision, the more potent its effect on reality, because energy follows thought and feeling. And as you imagine success and opportunities you once missed, the mental rehearsal primes you to recognize and act on similar opportunities today, so that windfalls, promotions, or investments appear naturally as if by synchronicity. And this is not mere luck, but a reflection of the alignment between inner expectation and outer manifestation. And as your consciousness absorbs this practice, fear, hesitation, and doubt give way to readiness, decisiveness, and creativity, making financial breakthroughs increasingly probable. And the beauty of revision is that it transforms past limitation into present magnetism for abundance, because the mind can only create in accordance with its dominant state. And as you continue, every memory of scarcity, debt, or missed opportunity becomes a tool for attracting wealth, rather than a chain holding you back. And this inner alignment enhances intuition, judgment, and confidence, so that both planned investments and unexpected gains are perceived and seized naturally, seamlessly leading into the next phase. Revising childhood scarcity and inherited beliefs to heal deeply rooted patterns and further solidify the mindset of wealth and prosperity. And as you learn to attract investments and unexpected financial gains through revision, it becomes clear that some of the deepest patterns of scarcity are rooted in childhood experiences, because the beliefs instilled during early years, whether hearing money doesn't grow on trees or observing struggle in family finances, linger in consciousness and influence your relationship with abundance. And Neville teaches that by revisiting these formative memories in imagination and rewriting them as experiences of security, opportunity, and abundance, you can release long-held limitations that may have shaped every financial decision since. And as you consistently imagine yourself as a child feeling confident, capable, and supported in the presence of money, the subconscious mind begins to adopt this new narrative, replacing fear and limitation with expectation and readiness. And the more vividly you recreate these moments with feeling, the more naturally your adult consciousness internalizes the belief that wealth is normal, accessible, and aligned with who you are, so that even subtle triggers of scarcity from childhood, such as habits, phrases, or old anxieties, lose their power to provoke doubt or hesitation. And as this practice continues, you notice a growing ease in financial decisions, an increased ability to recognize opportunities, and a sense of confidence that feels instinctive rather than forced, because the foundation of your mind has been rewired through imaginative revision. And this internal shift also transforms how you relate to money conversations, investments, and risk-taking, allowing creativity and insight to guide action rather than fear or past limitation. And as the energy of childhood scarcity fades, you naturally embody the identity of someone who deserves and expects abundance, which in turn magnetizes wealth, partnerships, and opportunities that resonate with this identity. And the clarity, confidence, and empowerment cultivated through this process flow seamlessly into the next step, connecting revision with gratitude, showing how transforming the past can amplify appreciation for resources and multiply wealth in the present. And as you heal childhood scarcity and reshape early financial memories, it becomes clear that revision naturally cultivates gratitude, because as you replace fear, lack, and regret with images of abundance, your mind begins to notice not only what you have now, but the potential and opportunities that surround you. And Neville teaches that this sense of appreciation is a powerful attractor for wealth, because the energy of gratitude amplifies the flow of resources and aligns consciousness with abundance rather than limitation. And as you consistently practice revision, the act of remembering past financial challenges with a mindset of transformation allows you to feel thankful for lessons learned, for resilience developed, and for the capacity to imagine new possibilities. And this emotional shift strengthens your belief that abundance is both deserved and attainable, making it easier to recognize opportunities, make wise decisions, and embrace unexpected gains. And as gratitude deepens, you notice that resources, ideas, and support often appear at just the right moment, as if in response to your inner acknowledgement of what you already have. And the more vividly and emotionally you experience this gratitude during revision, the more powerful its effect on your subconscious expectations, creating a positive feedback loop where appreciation fuels abundance and abundance fuels further appreciation. And as this pattern becomes habitual, your financial decisions, investments, and creative ventures are guided by a sense of alignment rather than desperation, confidence rather than fear, and insight rather than confusion. And the inner energy you cultivate attracts opportunities, favorable circumstances, and collaboration naturally, making wealth creation feel effortless and inevitable. And as you internalize this connection between revision and gratitude, you are fully prepared to embrace the final step of living as if every revision has already manifested, embodying the wealth consciousness in every thought, feeling, and action, which leads directly into the concluding understanding of manifesting abundance through the practice of living as if. And as you integrate revision, gratitude, and the reimagining of past financial experiences, it becomes evident that the ultimate step in Neville's method is to live as if every transformation you have imagined has already manifested. Because when you carry the feeling of abundance into your present actions, thoughts, and decisions, your consciousness aligns fully with the reality you desire. And Neville teaches that imagining the end, feeling it as real, and acting in accordance with that reality is the most powerful form of creation. And as you embody this state consistently, you notice that opportunities, resources, and favorable circumstances begin to flow naturally, reflecting the inner world you have cultivated through revision, and living as if is not an act of pretending, but a conscious alignment with the life you intend to experience, which rewires the subconscious mind to expect wealth, security, and success in every area of life. And as you continue, decisions once paralyzed by fear now flow with clarity, confidence, and foresight, and interactions with others become conduits for collaboration, partnership, and financial growth. Because your internal state communicates abundance and readiness without words. And over time, the distinction between imagined revision and outer manifestation blurs, making wealth, opportunity, and financial freedom appear effortless and inevitable, and the practice of living as if magnifies every previous revision, amplifying the positive outcomes of reimagined memories, conversations, and childhood beliefs. And this internal consistency strengthens intuition, attracts serendipitous opportunities, and reinforces the expectation that prosperity is your natural state. And as the energy of abundance saturates your consciousness, scarcity, fear, and regret lose all influence, leaving a clear, confident, and empowered mindset capable of navigating any financial challenge. And through this process, you realize that wealth is not something to chase externally, but a reflection of your inner world, consciously cultivated and consistently maintained. And by living as if, every past mistake is forgiven, every missed opportunity becomes a lesson, every debt is dissolved in consciousness, and every limitation is replaced by expectation, vision, and action, seamlessly connecting the practice of revision to real-life abundance, so that the life you have always imagined is no longer distant or hypothetical, but present, tangible, and yours to experience fully in every moment.